What's up, guys? This is going to be yet another ramble. This one we have three pretty simple tips, one being mindset related, one being practice related, and those two tips will kind of be given through a long spiel about an idea I have to do with cubing and how you should practice. And then the last tip, which will just be kind of thrown in at the end, kind of tacked on, is just a very basic F2L tip for CFOP solvers that I think a decent amount of people will already know it, but I also think a decent number of people won't know it. And the people who don't know it, those are the people I'm trying to reach with this one. So, here we go. So, first onto a bit of the mindset and practice stuff. So, the premise behind my spiel is basically, or I guess not premise, more of a thesis, is the idea that the best way to practice and the best area of your solve to actively work on is the one you enjoy doing. Hey, now why is that? Well, to answer that question, if you naturally enjoy something, as in you just genuinely enjoy, I don't know, last layer algorithms, or you genuinely enjoy look ahead, or something of that nature, if you enjoy it, you're going to put in a better effort than you would otherwise. And you'll have a healthier relationship with cubing as a whole, so that's kind of more to do with the mindset stuff. Basically what I'm saying is if you're practicing something that really just brings out a lot of negative emotion in you and just is not enjoyable whatsoever, but you know, you have goals you want to reach, then that can lead you down a path of having an unhealthy relationship with cubing. And then on the flip side, if you just naturally enjoy something, then there is a very good chance that you're going to put in more hours than you need to in order to get better at it. Which is a good thing, because more is generally better when it comes to practice, to an extent. So, with that said, I personally, on this channel, I do tend to rag on things that I view as less than optimal, because I, as a cuber, my interests lie in being faster, the fastest, doing whatever it takes to get there. And I don't mean myself being the fastest, I'm not trying to, like, get the world record, but I am very interested on, I guess, like an intellectual level in what methods and approaches will be the best going forward, and, you know, basically what the fastest speed cubers will be using in the next decade or so. That's where my interest lies. As such, I do tend to rag on things that I view as less than optimal and not, you know, capable of being at the highest echelon. Things like, I don't know, the R3 U-perm I do take some issue with. People can debate me on that one. That's a bit more debatable. I'm not as certain, but I do believe that R3 U-perm isn't the way to go. I think you can learn a good finger trick and just do that faster. And then there's methods like ZZ and Petrus, which I definitely do not think are capable to contend with CFOP whatsoever. So as such, I do like to rag on those methods. And I will continue to rag on these because I believe in CFOP, and ultimately, as I said, I take the most interest in what's objectively fast. But you may not think this way. At the end of the day, you won't have much success in cubing if everything just feels like a drag or a chore. And I'm going to say that over and over, but I think it is an important thing to keep in mind. You, for example, you may find CFOP very boring. You may find it to be a drag. You may not care that it gives you faster times. You may find it just that much more boring that you would rather do like a second worse with ZZ. Yeah. So, what it really comes down to, this is probably the take-home thing that I really want people to actually take the time to think about. What it really comes down to is being honest with yourself about what makes you happy, what you enjoy within cubing, and of course on the flip side, what you don't enjoy in cubing and what tends to annoy you. And also being honest with yourself about your goals. So, honest with yourself about what you want to get out of cubing, what you're trying to achieve, and on the flip side, what you're not trying to achieve. So what goals you are definitely not interested in. So, for example, maybe, for whatever reason, I don't know why you would enjoy this, but there are people who still do this in 2018, going on 2019 of course. Maybe for some reason you like doing the roux method, but instead of finishing roux style where you do CMLL into last 6 edges, you find it more enjoyable to do a CFOP finish where you just tack on the last cross edges with slice moves and then you do last layer. Maybe this is how you genuinely enjoy solving for some reason, and if this is how you enjoy solving, then this can make sense and all the power to you. Get what you want to get out of cubing. I'm never gonna give someone shit for not taking cubing as seriously as I do, because at the end of the day, it's not that important of a hobby in terms of like money you can get out of it and just stuff as a whole. Like it's just a very niche thing. I'm very aware of that. However, that being said, what's more likely happening in my Rue CFOP example, which I do see a lot, is you're either trying to prove for some strange egoic reason that you've invented something worthwhile, or maybe for some reason you just don't have the drive to learn CMLL and you just don't want to deal with it, and you want to use Rue because, you know, Rue is, you know, the cool hip thing these days. But because you're too lazy to learn CMLL because you don't like algs, you want to do a CFOP finish instead because, you know, you're still using algs, you're just using ones that you know. So that maybe there's that. There also could just be a good chance you have what I like to call cubing ADD, which is, I don't think that's much of an offensive term because I think a lot of cubers have real ADD. But anyways, there could be a good chance that you have cubing ADD and you just struggle to stick to one method or one way of doing things. And believe me, I know what this is like because I've been an all-rounder. All-rounders are notorious for switching between events constantly and not really having a main event or like any identity within cubing beyond being like okay at everything, basically. But in any case, it is important to like ask yourself, and I mean honestly ask yourself, you know, no bullshitting yourself. You know, there's no point lying to yourself unless you're good enough that you can believe your own lies, which is also not good. That's where cognitive dissonance comes from. But that being said, it's important to ask yourself about your motivations with cubing and assess whether you just want to have fun or if you're really truly trying to be as fast as you can be and you're also willing to do what it takes to be as fast as you can be. Being honest with yourself about where you kind of lie on that fun to discipline spectrum is useful because there's a chance that you've got a mix of both. Like, you want to reach certain goals, but there's certain things you're not really willing to do. And on the flip side, maybe you do mostly just want to have fun, but at the same time, there are a few things that you would at least like to, you know, kind of tick off as like a bucket list thing. And that's okay too. There's a very good chance that you're not going to really be one or the other, where you're strictly for fun or strictly for being fast. If you are, and you're watching this channel in particular, there's a very good chance that you're on the I want to be fast at all costs end of the spectrum, and that's why I provide the service that I do. But enough promoting my service and sucking my own dick. On with the ramble. So, this is something you're going to have to think about in your own time. However, I think it is very, very important for cubers to do this, so that they can have a more meaningful practice session and more enjoyment out of the hobby as a whole. I should have said more meaningful practice sessions, but you get the idea. Being honest with yourself about your goals and your motivations, it's gonna give you a healthier relationship with cubing as a whole, and it's probably gonna get you closer to what you want out of cubing as well. So that's pretty much where I'm coming from. So it's a bit of a mental exercise, but this mental exercise will work and will help you get to that level. Only if you're honest though. Gotta be honest, no bullshit, no trying to lie to yourself, no cognitive dissonance in this house. So, here's one last thing I'll say about this before I move on. So, for example, with the you know, not being sure where you're at with cubing, you might find yourself getting annoyed at your slow times, because, you know, no one likes getting a bad solve. It's pretty frustrating. I know plenty of people who have broken cubes over getting bad solves. It does happen. But you claim to use a subpar method, so for example, you know, ZZ or Petrus, and you say you use the method for fun, because it's more fun for you, and it's more enjoyable, and CFOP is lame. CFOP is so mainstream, bro. Then, so if that's how you feel, but you get frustrated at bad solves, are you really being honest with yourself? Is using good, efficient, but less flashy and less glitzy CFOP really that much more of a drag on your psyche than using a more fun method, quote-unquote, but getting solve times that bring out negative emotions? What do you think is bringing out the worst in you between those two? There's a very good chance that it's not the method you're using. At least that's what I find to be the case. So those types of people would kind of be in the camp of they do want to get fast and do what it takes, but they're just, I don't know, they're just lacking a little bit of the discipline, and they just kind of need to realize it. So yeah, be honest with yourself, and be honest with yourself about what you care about and what motivates you and what you want to achieve. One example I do want to talk about a little bit before I move on to the F2L tip, because the F2L tip is by far the least interesting part of the video, I'll just tell you now. But there is one cuber that comes to mind with this whole discussion about you know, efficiency versus fun. And the example I thought of was Oscar Roth Anderson. You may or may not have heard of him. I hope you've heard of him because he's a fucking good cuber. But basically, Oscar Roth Anderson, somewhat more well known as Otter. So the way he solves Megaminx, a lot of people will probably know. Those who know his name will probably know that he's good at Pyraminx, and some more people might also know that he's good at Megaminx. But what people may not know is that he does Petrus EO on Megaminx. So what that means is basically when he gets to the last two faces on a Megaminx, instead of just doing F2L and then last layer, he does Petrus EO where he orients all the edges using like RU, R prime, FR inserts. And then once he's done that, he can finish F2L 2-gen, he gets an EO skip, so he can do OLL 2-gen, and then PLL, just because of the nature of PLL on Megaminx, you can also do a lot of PLLs 2-gen. And Oscar, he loves his 2-gen, he finds it very fun. He enjoys the absolute heck out of it. And that's how he solves Megaminx. And I remember talking, I don't know if I either talked to him about it or if I heard through the grapevine about this, but Oscar Roth Anderson, Otter, he is very aware of the fact that the way he solves is not the fastest, and that he would get faster times if he just used the boring way. However, because he does not practice the boring way, he is relatively bad at the boring way. And when I say boring, I mean just pretend I'm doing this over and over again, because it's all subjective. But basically, because he finds it so boring that it kills his motivation to practice, maybe not that extreme, but you get the idea. Because he enjoys doing the Petrus way more, that's kind of what leads him to practice enough to get fast to begin with. So, basically, he solves Megaminx more. He just solves it more because he does something that is more fun. If he did something less fun, there is a good chance he would solve less. And one could argue that he's faster than he would have been with the better method, simply because he would have put in less hours that way. And I think there could be some truth to that. I think it could definitely be true that if it weren't for the fun way of solving, Oscar would have never put in the hours he did to become world champion, to get European records. And I think even today he's still somewhat closer, maybe not the top echelon, but he's like somewhere between 40 and 45, which is, you know, quite good. And maybe you two are like Otter, and maybe you're not totally concerned with being, you know, the top echelon. Maybe you're not even concerned with being the fastest with your method. I don't think Otter particularly cares that he's the fastest with Megaminx Petrus or whatever you want to call it. I think he just has fun with it, and, you know, it's a good enough method that he can get, you know, relatively close to the top. He's definitely not... The people, like, faster than him are definitely a tier above, but he's not bad at Megaminx by any means. And maybe that's a bit how you are. Maybe you know, you want to be fast, but you don't really care about being number one. And maybe you don't really care how you get there, because there are a lot of... At the end of the day, for most puzzles, there are a lot of different methods to solve them that can be done in, like, relatively similar speeds, at least when it comes to, like, the second or third highest echelon of cubing. But to get to the top, you want to be careful about what method you pick, basically. So, that being said, this is not to be confused with continuing to use bad habits. So, there is a distinction I want to make here. So, there's bad aspects of the method you're using, and then there's also bad habits within a method. So for example, maybe you don't like solving with CFOP, so you use ZZ, and I don't mean like CFOPy ZZ where you do all the cross edges after EO and then do F2L. I mean the way of ZZ that's called the real way, which is funnily enough slower, at least as far as I can tell. So real ZZ, maybe that's how you enjoy solving. However, and just so we're clear, if this is the method you enjoy using, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it, even though I guarantee it won't get you to the highest echelon. However, let's say, I don't know, anytime you get like this F2L case within ZZ, maybe your general approach to this pair is something that's definitely suboptimal, like insert the edge and then, I don't know, triple sexy. I think we can all agree that that is not the fastest way to do that pair. That is not really the same as enjoying using ZZ because you don't like CFOP, because what I just showed you there, that is something that can work within your style. So basically, there's two categories here, like I said before. So the two categories we can start putting things into, There's optimizations and improvements. So for example, a better way of doing that pair would maybe be something like the RD common to insert the core into the edge, and then that 2-gen finish, which is less moves. So that would go under optimizations and improvements of your style. So that kind of case, it fits within your style, there's just a better way to do it. But then on the flip side, there are optimizations and improvements of your style. So, did I just say the same thing twice? Yeah, basically what I meant to say is, so there's optimizations and improvements that work within the framework of your style, like the F2L case. And then there's optimizations and improvements of your style. So for example, doing ZZ but solving all 4 cross edges. That would most likely make you faster. So yeah, that's basically like the 2 different types of improvements a cuber can make. And I did touch on this a little bit in my 3-part series on how I do my analysis work, the max part case study, and I'd highly recommend you watch that if you haven't already. But basically, with my analysis work, I have generally found that for cubers who are still pretty far from the highest echelon of solve times, which makes up 90% of my clients, I get the best results with these clients when I make most of the work they do work that will fit within the framework of their solving style. So basically, with people that come to pay me to, tell them how to improve, just because, and just for the simple reason that they're, pretty far from the top generally, it's very easy for me to give them advice that will work within the framework of their style. And on the flip side, usually like their style, it doesn't have bad enough habits that I feel it's necessary to overhaul their style. Truth be told, this is something I did kind of understand on an intuitive level, and I don't think I've ever given a non-world-class solver an improvement plan that's any more than like 1 part style change and then 2 parts non-style change. So like efficiencies, like how to do an F2L case better. That being said, I didn't really understand this beyond like an intuitive level until I like scripted this whole thing for this ramble. That's kind of why this whole mindset and practice tip is kind of running on and on, because it's a lot easier for me to like clarify my thoughts when I basically script and, prepare to make these videos. Of course, I do make these videos because I like helping cubers and I do want to help people with content that doesn't currently exist, but I do also want to make it clear that making these videos helps me with my thinking, and if you feel like you can add similar value to others by doing this, so imparting your cubing wisdom onto the world, which I think more people should do, especially top cubers, I would encourage you to try and make your own J-style ramble videos and, see where it takes you. There's a good chance it'll be good for you as well, and it could be good for the cubing community as well, so if it's good for everyone, why not give it a try? Alright, so that's 2 of the 3 tips down. There's one little tip on mindset, and then there's a little bit of a tip on how, thinking about what you practice in a better framework. Now we'll get on to the F2L tip, and this, once again, some of you already know this, some of you won't. It's basically to do with cases where you see 2 F2L pairs. It doesn't have to be your last 2 pairs, just any 2 pairs that you see. They're both free, so free meaning 3-move insert or 4-move insert, depending on AUF. But one of them is a block pair, and then one of them is a split pair. And this is assuming the block pair and the split pair are both in the U layer. There are 6 cases. No, wait, there's 4 cases for this. And funnily enough, for all 4 of these cases, the correct option is always insert the split pair first. So this is case 1, so this is where the pair is here. If you insert this first, you mess up the free pair. You can do an alternative insert to get the free pair, but if you just solve the split pair normally, you'll preserve the block pair. And this is true for all of the 4 cases where you have a split pair and a block pair. So here, just doing that keeps the pair, and then if we move the pair over to there. So if we insert this first, it's not going to keep this. If we do U2, it's not going to do anything. I mean, Sledge is obviously not going to work. You could do that, but again, then you're doing a different insert, and that's kind of going to add to your mental, just things you have to think about. Less thinking can be good, and this is one of those cases where because you can think less, you should think less. So once again, split pair, just the same way you always insert it, that will give you the free pair. So the other cases, so we have this one. This is one of the rare cases where the standard insert will give you the free pair. However, alternate inserts definitely will not, and you may, depending on the angle, want to use an alternate insert for block pairs. But for free pairs, you don't really, or split pairs rather, you don't really get that freedom. And here you can do this and also get the block pair. And if we move this to here, so we have this case now, this one splits up the block pair, but it still keeps the block pair. And then inserting the block pair first, this will not give you anything you want. Okay, that one works, but again, it's an alternate insert, so you can make it work with the block pair, but in order to make it work where you insert the block pair first, you have to learn alternate inserts. And with the split pair, you don't. So what's the lesson here? If you have a split pair and a block pair, both of them being free pairs, in the U layer, always do the split pair first. Always, 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 always. I don't think there are enough exceptions to the rule for me to ever suggest doing otherwise. I think always doing the split pair first will be the better call to action. So there's 3 tips in one video. 2 very rambly mindset / practice related tips, and then a pretty basic F2L one that you may have known. You may have half known it on an intuitive level, or maybe you didn't know it at all. But in any case, I hope at least one of these tips helped you, and if it did, I don't know, leave a comment, promote my social media, give me money, do something. Alright, thanks for watching. More rambles to come.